Hi everyone and welcome to the Neurolympics podcast brought to you by Brains First, the company that helps you make better talent decisions powered by neuroscience. I'm Lucy, I'm the host of the Neurolympics podcast, and so far we've enjoyed great conversations with our Brains First co-founders. And today I'm actually super excited to speak to you on my very first solo episode. In our last conversation with Ea, we dive into the topic of attention, talking about what attention is, how it functions, what its limitations are, and how it expresses itself differently. How we can all have more of a directive versus a perceptive attention style, and why it is so important for you to also figure out where on the dimension your attention is, because really different challenges and different needs are associated with the different attention styles. And if you're wondering now what I'm talking about, well, I would really recommend you, if you haven't done so, to watch our last episode. You can find it somewhere here in the description, the show notes. I'm sure you're going to find a link. And we also touch upon how we can improve our attention. And today I want to use the opportunity to go a little bit more deeper into some of the topics we already addressed and also some other topics. And in case you might be wondering why I'm so enthusiastic about these neuroscience topics, well, I have a background in psychology, specialized in brain and cognition, and a master's degree in applied neuroscience. So I really love to take the insights, the brain insights, and apply them to business and societal issues and the architecture world, really anywhere where you can find people. And yeah, I have a few topics on my heart today that I want to speak about. I hope you find them relevant and interesting as well. Let me know after this episode in the comment section, but let's dive right into it. I'm going to start with a fact that might come a bit surprising to you, maybe also a little bit shocking. But did you know that you're actually better off smoking cannabis than having your phone next to you on the desk while you're working? Well, you might already have a clue which topic I'm touching upon. This is technological distractions. They have a huge influence on us in the 21st century. But yeah, it's true. There was a study investigating the IQ of workers, and the study found that if workers were exposed to their phones, like having them next to them and receiving calls, receiving messages, their IQ dropped by 10 points. But if you were smoking cannabis on a short term, your IQ would drop by 5 points. So yeah, it's true. Receiving notifications by your phone, you're better off being stoned on your desk than having the phone next to you. And why am I making this comparison? Well, I think we're all aware that technological distractions are out there. However, I think, and me included, oftentimes we think, yeah, they have a minor influence on us. However, the influence can be quite big, and I think it's a topic we need to talk about because we're all affected by it. Our kids are affected by it, and I'm not assuming that this will be any better in the near future, and it's really affecting our attention. There's also some other facts. The average worker is distracted every 3 minutes. However, it also takes the average worker about 20 minutes to get back into a flow of working. And if you're comparing these numbers, you might think, well, am I ever then getting into a workflow? Well, it's a good question. I think many of us nowadays might even answer with no. And the average CEO has a maximum uninterrupted time of 28 minutes. First, I thought this is quite a lot, actually, comparing to these other numbers. However, then I also thought, okay, CEOs might also work a lot in the morning, in the evening. That's maybe where they get their uninterrupted time. Well, if you're a CEO, you let me know, but then it's also not really healthy. And off topic from work, car accidents, 1/5 of our car accidents are nowadays caused by any interaction with the phone, also only receiving notifications, and the effects on your attention system while driving of the phones are equivalent to you being legally drunk. So it's quite a huge effect. And the question is, why are technological distractions, or really any kind of distraction, so problematic for our attention system? This has to do with something that we call, or a phenomenon that we call, switching. We briefly touched upon this in our last episode, and we are switching all the time, every day, when we're distracted, when we're multitasking. This is a topic that Ea mentioned this several times. Please don't multitask. You're really hurting your attention with this. And here is why. When we're multitasking, well, our brains give us the impression that we're doing two or multiple things at the same time. They're kind of running in parallel, and we're doing them with equally attending to both at the same time. However, this is a wrong impression that our brains are giving us. What really happens is that we're juggling between tasks. So we're switching back and forth with our attention. And we've been falling for an illusion here, which is really costly for the brain. And there's 3 ways that switching is degrading our ability to focus. Here's effect number 1. It's called the switch cost effect. Really what your brain is doing when switching between tasks is it has to think what it's been thinking before, then it has to think what it thought about what it was doing. And this is really time costly. And so what happens is your ability to focus degrades and ultimately your performance. The second effect is called the screw up effect. Our brains are error prone. If we're engaging in switching a lot, then our brains have to really be on track of where they left off and then ultimately take in new information. And this, again, is really cost efficient for the brain. And instead of focusing its full brain capacity on the main task you're doing, it really needs this capacity for the switching itself. And so you're more likely to commit errors or mistakes on your main task and your accuracy decreases. And the third effect is that we're experiencing a drain of our creativity. Why is that? When we look at the brain, really what happens when you're being creative, if you have some uninterrupted and undistracted time, your brain really loves to take what it absorbed and what it experienced and what it learned to constantly form new associations, new connections. And so it could happen that it takes 2 seemingly unrelated thoughts and they suddenly have a relationship. And then this is what you would consciously experience as having like a new idea is born or having a new idea. And this is what your brain does automatically if you're non-distracted or really not engaging in a lot of tasks, but have this time away, this mental time away. But if you're constantly switching, then your brain has no opportunity to engage in this, and then your creativity also drains. So if you want to do things right, I really advise you focus on one thing at a time and really monotask, and also give yourself some periods away from your distractions. Here I'm speaking about like obvious distractions like our phones that we can control. A lot of distractions in daily life are a little bit uncontrollable. So for example, I'm speaking to the camera now, but simultaneously there are some cars in the background driving by. So I might be distracted a little bit by this. I cannot really influence it, but take some time away from your phones, shut off other distractions, because also if you think you can have your phone, for example, next to you and just ignore it, this is not going to happen. Your brain is always going to put some attention on it. And again, it's really taking capacity to fight off these distractions. So yeah, just put it away and have some really undistracted time. The constant distractions and engaging in multitasking also come at another cost of what is really related to attention, and that is experiencing flow states. So what are flow states? Many psychologists and neuroscientists would call it the deepest form of focus or attention, the most intense form of attention. And it's really this feeling that you get when you're like in the zone. It's like being fully immersed into a task for a period of time and also enjoying yourself so much in a task. Like you're really not thinking about anything else. And you might want to ask yourself now, have I ever experienced a state of flow? Well, you're really likely to answer yes. Only about 15% of you, I would assume, would answer with no. However, if I ask you the question, are you experiencing flow states on a daily basis? Then most of you will probably say no, which is kind of sad because our brains actually love to be in a flow state. They love this, what it's called, continuous stream of information, being in or having this continuous stream of experience and conscious experience, which is also called a continuity principle. But how do we actually get into a state of flow and also maintain a state of flow is now the question. And I have 3 tips for you. The first thing is choose a clearly defined goal and then monotask on that goal. So really flow is putting all your brain power into one dedicated mission. Then the second tip is do something or engage in something that is really meaningful to you. And I am emphasizing this to you because what is meaningful to you might be really different than what is meaningful to me. However, this is really a truth of attention. We have evolved to attend to what is meaningful to us. And there's also this saying, a frog will look way more often or more intensely at a fly that it could eat than at a stone or rock that it couldn't eat. So I think you're getting my point. And the third advice is do something at the edge of your abilities. So if something, I like to call this like have a good challenge or challenge yourself a bit, but also not too much. If you're doing something that is too easy, then you go over into autopilot. If something is too hard, you might get anxiety or like pressure and stress. And this will also not really likely get you into the flow. So really do something at the edge of your abilities. Then there's environmental or external factors that can help boosting your concentration. One of them is natural light. So if you're doing a lot of home office, I really advise you don't crawl out of bed and then walk 2 meters and sit at your desk, but get some time off and go outside. And on a really sunny day, you want to get maybe 5 to 10 minutes of some sunlight in the morning. On a more cloudy day, 20 to 25 minutes are good, but this will really boost your concentration right at the start of your day. And there's also a theory that's called the attention restoration theory. What it says that spending time in nature is really efficient for our concentration. And even having some plants in your office environment or also in your home office, of course, can help. And even the effect of, or there's even an effect of looking at images of nature that can already boost your attention. And speaking about this, actually what comes to mind is that I really enjoy also listening to nature's sounds that personally gets me really into the flow. Maybe you can try this as well, like ocean waves or, I don't know, birds in the jungle. There's some nature sound playlists out there. And if you cannot find one, well, shoot me a message. I'll send you my favorite playlist. What also really helps you to get into a concentration flow is physical activity. So walking is already good. Take some walks during your day. This will really get some or pump some oxygen and also fresh blood to your brain. And yeah, will really activate you. So afterwards, you will get into a better state of concentration. And also this boosts what we call alpha brain waves. And they are responsible for a wakeful rest and a state of calmness. And so it has been showing that walking activity or really any physical activity also helps your creativity, helps you to learn faster, and also be more rested while working and more relaxed. And then lastly, very important is, of course, to also take breaks. So Ilya mentioned in our last episode that really any one of us, and again, I'm highlighting here that this differs between us. So if you're more of a directive or a perceptive attentionist or have an attention style, then it means that some of you will get into a state of flow quicker than others. But all of us really having started a state of flow after 45 minutes, you need a well-deserved break. And I do want to put some attention here on the techniques and apps that are out there that are claiming to boost your attention and also claim to make you smarter. And don't get me wrong, these apps are great. These techniques are good. There's nothing harmful about them. However, I don't think they work for all of us. For example, this very famous Pomodoro technique that gives you like 25 minutes time intervals of work, and then you take a 5-minute break and you have these scheduled intervals. Well, for some of us, it really takes like 20 minutes to get into a state of flow, and then this wouldn't really work for you because after 5 minutes, well, yeah, you take a break again. So it's not really beneficial for you. So I really advise you to get to know your attention style. And one last thing, when I said you need a good challenge to also get into the flow, there's a law, it's called the Jerks-Dodson law, that really explains the relationship between arousal and performance. So you can imagine a graph, and on the x-axis you have arousal and on the y-axis you have performance. It's like a bell-shaped curve. So if you are in a low arousal state, this is where I said you go into autopilot, everything is a bit boring and then you won't really perform well. However, if you have a medium arousal, so this means you're a little bit excited, you're even a little bit stressed, you will reach optimal performance. This is why you need a good challenge. You can also go into this over-aroused state, so you have too much arousal. This is when you are full of adrenaline, cortisol, your immune system goes down, you've experiencing stress and pressure, but then also your performance will drop again. So finding your medium arousal state will get you into the optimal performance. What can also help you to boost your attention, ultimately your performance, and get you into this medium state of arousal is the presence of others. So many studies have shown that you actually increase your attention or your focus and your work performance if you're surrounded by others, like in a co-working space. And again, I'm stressing here not to be mistaken with being distracted by others, but not being distracted by others and surrounded by others. And this is because we're all social beings. We have a need to connect, we have a need to belong, and also it motivates us to be surrounded by others because there's always a form of a little bit competition, impression management. I want to come across as doing well. So this can boost your attention, especially for tasks that come kind of easy to you, that are simple for you, and that come a little bit automated and are well learned. The effect of others or the presence of others can lower your ability to focus if you have really complex tasks. For example, you're engaging in a new task, in a novel task, and you haven't really practiced it before, then the presence of others can degrade your ability to focus. And also if being surrounded by others puts you into a high state of arousal, for example, if you're struggling a bit with social anxiety, then it might also not be the best way to go for you. And I also want to draw the link to athletic performance because there's a theory called social facilitation theory, and it kind of explains that if you're a professional sporter, then having a large audience around you really boosts your ability to perform, your ability to focus, because you are a pro at what you're doing. Everything comes automated and you're at a medium state of arousal again. However, if you're a beginner or if you're somewhere in the medium level, then the presence of others can again degrade your ability to perform and to focus because it's kind of serves as a distraction. This is, for example, what happens to me playing tennis. I'm quite okay-ish, but not really good. And I experienced this the other day in the park. I was playing with a friend, and then suddenly people joined watching us, and then I just couldn't bring a ball across the net anymore. So yeah, this is maybe also a good fact if you're tuning in today as an athlete or as a coach. Yeah, and I want to end this episode with, again, drawing some attention towards this, what I said in the beginning, societal issue that we're seeing. We're all being affected by technological or like any kind of distractions in the 21st century, even more than ever before, because this also comes with us just being overloaded by information. We see in kind of every system, for example, if we take news, that there's an accelerating trend of like news reaching popularity, but then also again dropping in popularity. And this happens more frequently. So we're just constantly overloaded with new information and new, well, kind of sensational news, for example. And this is also only an example of us really overloading our brains, because the issue here is our society is changing or has been changing, but our brains cannot keep up because our brains are not suddenly after a couple of years just adjusting to this extreme amount of information that we haven't experienced before. And also your prefrontal cortex can lose its ability to filter well. We spoke in our last episode about filtering noise, having to make decisions in your brain about which information should I attend to, not attend to, what is important and what is not. And this is shown that our kids in classrooms are just doing worse in filtering unrelated information, and also us living in really overcrowded cities with urbanization on the rise. And also what happens is our brains are just not going into depth anymore with any information, because if we have too many information, we'll go into this modus of just skipping from information to information, because going into depth would take too much time and too much capacity. So this is also an effect we're seeing. And yeah, we're really reading life, you might say, because since the 1950s, we have started to walk about 10% faster on average and also speak about 10% faster. So the effects are huge, and I don't want to end on a negative note, really not. I think I just want to really put out some awareness there how much our attentional systems are affected by the way we're living right now. And I hope this episode helps you to be a bit more aware of what might be harmful for you, what might be beneficial for you, to figure out your attention style, what works for you. And yeah, our attention is precious. So to really protect your attention and that of your kids and your employees and athletes, because we need our attention. It's such an important thing because it also decides ultimately what becomes your conscious experience and later decides what you're thinking about, your behaviors, your decisions that you make. So please put some awareness out there for your attention. Be gentle with it. and protected. So I hope you gained some new insights on this episode today. I hope you can get your attention flowing and you learned something new today, which is helpful for you on a daily basis, also in your work life or when you're engaging in athletics. Well, let me know what you thought about this. Leave any comments, insights, questions, some love in the comment section. I would really love to hear from you, and we would love to see you more engaged and more frequently on the Neurolympics podcast. So please make sure to subscribe on any of our platforms. You can also head over to www.brainsfirst.com/podcast to find all the relevant information. I'm excited to see you next time on the Neurolympics podcast. So have a good one, everyone, and till next time. Ciao, ciao.